Alright, so today we're going to be talking about domain and range. Alright, big thing, domain is your x's, range is your y. Remember, f of x is just a different way of writing y. Alright, so I like to think about domain as how wide is it, and range as how tall is it. Okay, so remember, domain is all your x values, range is all your y values. Okay, so on example 1, it wants me to find the domain and range of each of the following. So first of all, let's fill in our table for each point. Remember, when you write a point, x comes first. X comes from these numbers down here. Well, this point is from the origin back 1, which makes it a -1. So we went back 1, up 1, 2, 3, 4. So that point is at -1, 4. All right, our second point here, from the origin, went forward 1, which makes x1, up 2. This point here, from the origin, went forward 3, down 1. So +3, -1, because it went down 1. This last point, forward 3, down 1, 2, 3. Yes. So forward 3, so that's a +3. Down 3 makes that a -3. All right, so my domain is going to be a list of all of our x's. So this is the way we write it. We write brackets. And we're going to list our x's in numerical order. We had 3 twice, so there was no reason to repeat it. All right, range is going to be the list of all of our y's, so we put our brackets, and let's list our y's in numerical order. Okay. All right, next it wants me to evaluate f of -1. Remember, inside the parentheses is our x, so the way we read this is the whole thing means y. So the whole thing means y. I'm recording right now. Can I talk to you later? Thank you. All right, so in the parentheses we have x. The whole thing means y. So I need to go where x is -1. So here's my origin. -1 means go back 1. That's this point up here. So the y is 1, 2, 3, 4. Or you could have looked at your table and saw when x is -1, our y was 4. All right. All right, domain. Domain is x's, range is y's. So we're going to list all of our x values in brackets, numerical order. Sorry, my brackets are ugly. All right, range is the list of your y values. Well, in this case, the y is only 1. All right, so it's telling me to evaluate f of -4. So in the parentheses is your x. The whole thing means y. So I need to figure out what is y equal to when x is 4. Well, x is 4 here, y is 1. Okay, on number 3, the best way to do this one is to graph it, and I will show you using my graphing calculator here. So let me get to that real quick. Oops, wrong one. We're going to graph, and it said f of x is 10, so I'm going to graph 10. I can't see it, so that means I need to zoom out. Window zoom, and I'm going to zoom out. There it is. So really, all it is a horizontal line, and it crosses at 10. Okay, so now that you have an idea of what it looks like, I'm going to try to draw it on my paper. Let's go back. So we have an idea. So this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis, and it was just a horizontal line that cross the y at 10. Okay, so the domain is the set of all x values. Well, if I look at this, x is how wide it is. There is no stopping point. There's no stopping this one from going backwards or going forward. So I know it can go forever in the negative direction of x, and it can go forever in the positive direction of x. So when there is no stopping it, the domain, we're going to say, is all real numbers. Remember, range is your y, which talks about what is the height of it. So remember, the domain, the x's, there was no stopping how wide it is. It's going to get wider and wider forever and ever. So that's why we put all real numbers. Okay, range is talking about the height of it. How tall is it? Well, this entire line is at the same height. My height is at 10 and 10 only. It doesn't go any higher or any lower. So range, the only is 10. All right, so let's evaluate f of 8. So when x is 8, what's our y value going to be? So if I go over to 8, y always stays the same. So my y is always 10. It's always at a height of 10, no matter what x we have. Always at the same height. Okay, remember, domain is x, range is y. So we want to list our x's in numerical order. Then we want to list our range in numerical order as well, which are our y's. Okay, it wants me to evaluate f of -5, so that is when, I'm not -5, 5, I'm sorry. So let's go where x is 5, which is here. Follow that arrow, so when x is 5, our y is -9. All right, moving on. Okay, these are more so likely to give you problems. People don't like the graphs as much. So remember, domain is your x, and I say that's how wide it is because the x-axis goes left to right. Range is y's, and that's going to be how tall it is because your y-axis goes up and down. Okay, so for domain, you always do left to right. For range, you always go from bottom to the top. So let's do left to right. So it's going to start here. In domain, you want your x's, so you're going to be looking at these numbers. Only get these numbers, okay? X's. So it starts here. So if you trace that down to your x-axis, that starts at the origin. So it's starting at 0. And it's going to go all the way over here, and it stops here. So on the x-axis, that's at a 5. So I'm going to leave a space between that 0 and 5. All of my x's are between those because it starts at 0 and it goes all the way over to 5, from 0 to 5. That's how wide it is. Okay, we always use less than symbols because if we're going left to right, the first number should be smaller. So 0 is less than 5. So always use less than symbols because we go left to right. All right, if I look at this first one though, that's an open circle. Remember, if it's an open circle, you want no line underneath. But if I'm looking here, that's a solid circle. If it's solid, you need the solid line underneath. So our domain is all x's. So 0 is less than x, which is less than or equal to 5. Kind of means between in a way. All right, so let's do range. Range is from bottom to the top. So let's find the lowest it goes. This is the lowest. Range, we want to be looking at these numbers only. So this is at a height of 0. And the highest it goes is up here. So that is at a height of 4. This time I'm going to use a y. And because we go from bottom to top, we want to use less than symbols because 0 is less than 4. All right, so let's stop at the bottom. That's a closed circle, so I want a line underneath. At 4, that's a solid line. You'll see how it's solid. There's no open circle up here. It's solid. So I need the solid line on this one as well. All right, evaluate. Let's figure out what is y when x is 2. So x is 2 here. So I have to trace up. That is at a height of 4. So at 2, you go up until you hit the graph, which is there. That dot is at a height of 4. So y is 4 when x is 2. And I know I'm rewriting this stuff over and over again, but that's because I want you to memorize it until you're sick of it. So domain is x, which is talking about how wide it is, because the x-axis goes left to right. Okay, this one's kind of weird because left to right starts here, which is at -2. Y'all see that? So it starts here at -2. As I move to the right, there's an arrow, which means it's going to go on forever and ever and ever and ever. So we're going to have to use an inequality that helps us represent starting at -2 and going forward always. So I'm going to use x because domain means x, right? And I know it started at -2. So I have to think of a symbol that means from -2, forever going forward. So, sorry, greater than. Notice, starts at -2 and always goes forward. So all of these x values will be greater than -2. All right, look at this -2. It's a solid circle, so I'm going to need a solid line. So all of my x values are greater than or equal to -2. That makes sense because it starts at -2 and it's going to go forever forward. Okay, range. Remember, range is y. That's how tall it is because range is, the y-axis is up and down. So we need to find the lowest point. Well, the lowest it goes is right here. That's also the highest it goes. Okay, so our range is only one number. Y is equal to, and this entire piece is at a height of -1 because it's down 1 from the origin. And it's only -1 because it never goes higher, it never goes lower. It's at the same height the entire time. All right, evaluate f of -1. So that we're going to go to where x is -1. So here's my origin. Go back 1. Trace it to your graph. We need to find our y value. So what height is that? Well, that went down 1. So that'd be a -1. So when x is -1, our y is -1. All right, I'm doing it all over again. Domain is x, which means how wide is it? Because the x-axis goes left and right. Okay, so we're going to start left. Notice it has an arrow, which means it's going to keep going up and going wider and wider and wider. So there's no stopping it going this direction. So let's go to the right. As I go to the right, notice there's another arrow. So it's just going to keep getting wider and wider and wider. So there's no stopping it whatsoever. It's going to get wider forever and ever, so we're going to call that all real numbers. Remember, when there's no stopping it, it's all real numbers. On range, range is y, which is how tall is it? Up and down, because the y-axis is up and down. Bottom to top, so start at the bottom. The lowest it goes is down here, which is at 1, 2, 3, 4, -4. So that's my bottom. It starts at -4 and it's going to go up, and there's arrows, which means it will go up forever. So I need to write down y because range is y, and I need to put my -4. And I have to pick the correct symbol, which means it's going to start at -4 and go forever up. So I have to pick an inequality symbol that matches going up forever. Greater than, up. Greater than, up. All right, so now I need to decide, do I need the line underneath? So I look down here at -4. I don't see an open circle, so I'm going to put my line underneath. Okay, evaluate f of 0. So let's go figure out what is y when x is 0. So x is 0 here, so I have to trace down until I hit my graph, and I have to go down 1, 2, 3. So when x is 0, we went down 1, 2, 3. So y is -3 when the x was 0. All right, y'all are probably getting tired of this, but that's okay. Domain is x. How wide is it? Because the x-axis goes left and right. I'm writing this every time. I expect you to write it every time. All right, so left to right. We go left. I see an arrow, which means it's going to go to the left forever and ever. Let's go to the right. I see an arrow, which means it's going to go to the right forever and ever. Remember, when there's no stopping it in either direction, we say all real numbers. Range, y, that's how tall it is, because the y-axis is up and down. So bottom to top. As I go down, it's going to go down forever and ever because of the arrow. It's going to go up forever and ever. So there's no stopping it. We call that all real numbers. Okay, on this problem, it wants to know what is the range. So it's asking what are my y's when the domain is 2, 4, and 6. So it gave me 2, it gave me 4, and it gave me 6 for my x's. So now what I need to do is plug those in to figure out what is my y. So we're going to plug in for x. So the first thing I'm going to plug in for x is this 2. So 2 times 2 plus 7. Then I need to plug in 4 for x. So 2 times 4 plus 7. Then I'm going to have to plug in my 6. 2 times 6 plus 7. Go ahead and calculate those for me and get those filled into the table, please. All right, let's talk about 10. It's asking what is the domain, so what are the x values when the range is 5, 8, and 13. So this time it gave me the y's. So if you look at this, remember f of x means y. So if y is 5, I'm going to have 5 equals x plus 4. Figure out what x is. That goes here. Okay, let's try 8. Instead of f of x equals, we're going to put 8 equals x plus 4. Okay, now let's try when y is 13. So I'm going to have 13 equals x plus 4. I want you to calculate what does the value of each x have to be and plug that in here. All right, and that's it. All right, thank you guys.